Dude, to start off then, because I guess like obviously you've been through quite a lot in your musical career with Thrice, and you've done quite a lot of cool stuff in your time. I know you can't speak for the rest of the band, dude, but how do you feel like you've changed and developed from the very beginning of Thrice, very beginning of your musical career to now? Like, how have you changed, developed? Because it's such a story. You know, Thrice has such a story. You have such a story as an artist as well.
Oh yeah. It's wild. It's kind of hard to distill it down into something um, concise. I mean, we all started this band. I'm the oldest guy in the band. I started the band. I think I was 23 at the time, and the other guys were like 18, 19. And if you just think about the amount of growing up you do as just a human
Yeah,
between your late teens and your 40s, it's mental.
yeah,
Um, so to combine, the growth that we've had as humans with the growth that we've had as musicians, the ups and downs we've had as musicians, um, the amount of technology that's changed in the past 25 years. It's a lot to wrap your head around. Um, it's been a trip, and it's something that we're all insanely grateful for. It's pretty wild to think that we're still doing it, because we started this thing literally in a garage in Orange
yeah.
County with aspirations of like maybe playing a small club show someday. And now we're all in our 40s and touring the world, and we've put out 11 albums, and it's insane.
Yeah, man, it's incredible. And I mean that brings me on nicely to my next question. Obviously, different people have different definitions of success, and I work with a lot of young people that listen to Thrice and they think, "Well, I'm never going to be Riley. I'm never going to have that success." So I wanted to ask you, how do you define success as a person and as an artist if they're two different things?
Uh, the way my goals are oriented, I don't think I can achieve true success as an artist.
Mm.
Um, Maybe that's a little too weird and like woo woo, but I see the creative stuff that we do as a never ending journey. And there's something that I've mentioned in a few interviews before, but it's like with music or anything creative, like there's no end to it. Like you can't, like, it's not like a video game where you beat the final boss.
Yeah, yeah,
You can't like figure it out. There's no concrete answer to be like, oh yeah, well, I've made it. So I think a lot of it is just like the journey itself is the success and the reward.
yeah,
Just being allowed to do this is success for me. But then, if you would have asked us 25 years ago, success for us at that point was just playing a show, you know.
yeah,
And we've never been a band that was like, oh, we want to be rock stars and we want to be the biggest band in the world and be on magazine covers and be on TV all the time. And we were never, that was never a goal. We never got there. But we've always just set very short term kind of baby steps. And we've been lucky enough to be able to take a lot of those baby steps and get to where we are. Um, and I
yeah,
think, that's success to me, is just having new opportunities and taking them when they feel right.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you're more driven by creativity than you are about financials. You're more about experiences. I don't know if that's how it sounds to me. You're about the experience of being in the band and kind of traveling the world and all that, rather than again being on magazine covers and the aesthetic of it, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we we used to get people used to take the piss out of us I mean, they probably still do, because they're just like, oh man, you guys are so boring and normal. Like there's no story here.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, do you have any like dirty gossip about like touring with this band or that band? No. Oh,
Yeah.
do you have any stories of like crazy parties with like this famous person and that famous person? No. do,
Yeah.
do you do you have any stories of like when you got all this like cool free shit and like got to, you know, fly on this crazy jet to make a record in some remote island or something? No. Like
Yeah.
we're just dudes that make music, and I don't know. I mean, maybe that makes us boring and hard to write about or hard to cover, but I think we like it that way. We're not really cut out for like the big grandiose, like quote unquote rock star kind of mythological creature that so many people are enamored by.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, man. I mean, if you could sort of tell yourself, you know, you mentioned, you know, that sort of person you were when you started out, you know, if you could sort of give yourself a little bit of a lesson, if you could tell yourself anything now, knowing what you know about the industry and knowing what you know, having experienced what you've experienced, boring, exciting, or whatever, what lesson would you kind of, you know, impart to yourself? Words of wisdom, so to speak, about living, existing in the music industry and I guess beyond?
Um, I think the most important thing is to kind of trust your gut. And if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
Yeah.
Um, that's like on the business side more so, and then on the creative side also to trust your gut and do what feels right to you. Because if for some reason you fail or you have a misstep and you do it something that you feel really good about, it's a lot easier to swallow than like um, taking a leap and doing something that you feel might compromise your values or your integrity, and then have that fail.
Yeah.
That can be an extra shitty feeling.
Yeah.
And then just advice to myself, I guess, as like a younger musician, uh, probably like relax and enjoy it a little more. I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of hard to do when stuff is really happening. Like you're just so busy and tours are running into other tours, and then you get off tour and you got to make another record, and then you got to go tour in support of that one, and like you start to lose touch with some of your friends at home, and you're missing out on family stuff, and it's easy to get kind of spun out and not really be able to soak any of it in. And it's hard to relax, and I'm a generally anxious person, so those two things didn't really they didn't work too well together. But I feel like as I've gotten older, not only taking the hiatus that we took, but just realizing that every moment is not necessarily life or death, and just kind of it's important to just kind of sit and take it all in for a second and realize how grateful you are for it and how lucky you are to be able to do it. And I think early on I was just like, oh my God, like I'm freaking out inside. And that was hard to deal with sometimes.
Yeah. No, I get that, man. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, dude. I think, I do understand, again, it's a lot for anybody to take in. And you mentioned, trusting your gut there. And that's something that I think a lot of young people that I work with, they kind of think they've got to take every opportunity, and they think they've got to put themselves in situations that they maybe don't feel comfortable with. Part of my day job is working with young people, and then they look at people like yourself and they're like, oh, well, like I said, they're like, oh, I'm never going to get to there, and I've got to do this, I've got to move here, I've got to do that. And can you give me an example of when you've trusted your gut, whether that's Thrice or in your personal life, if you feel comfortable sharing that, and when that that trust in your gut has paid off for you, even perhaps when you didn't think it was gonna, if that makes sense?
Yeah, totally. I think the one that stands out like really, really clear as day to me is after we made The Artist in the Ambulance and toured on it. That was our first major label record. First record with like a big budget to record and make videos, and had all this promotion, and we were touring like crazy, and we wrote and recorded that record. So I want to say in about 3 months time, which felt very, very rushed to us. Maybe more so because of the amount of pressure that we felt just with it being our first major label release. But we felt really rushed, and that we didn't get to do everything that we wanted to do creatively. So when it came time to make a follow-up to Artist in the Ambulance, we collectively put our foot down as a band and said, hey, we need more time. We're not going straight out on the road after we put this out. Like, we need time to write. We need time to experiment. We're not going to work with like these hotshot LA producers that crank out rock radio hits. We're going to work with Steve Osborne, who's a British guy who's worked with U2 and Doves and Katie Tunstall.
Awesome.
And we really want to do something different. Like, we need to do what feels right to us. We can't just let this machine swallow us and push us to do something we don't feel comfortable with. And ultimately, that record didn't do what the label wanted it to do for us or them. But looking back on it now, if we hadn't trusted our guts there and done what felt right to us creatively, it would have drastically changed the career arc of this band. Like, maybe from like an immediate success standpoint, it was a failure, but as far as like a career move, it was a game changer for us, because it allowed us to become the band that we needed to be at that time, and it's helped steer us for the last 20 years.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's really cool to hear that as well. I think it's a good lesson to any young people that'll read this. Just because, again, you stuck to your guns and you didn't go for those hotshot producers and things like that. And I think it's really interesting to hear, your experience there. Going back to those records before we talk about the new stuff. Obviously, the new stuff that's coming out, and do a couple of questions around the tour that's coming up and everything. When you look at the Artist in the Ambulance, Identity Crisis, and records like that had such a following in the UK, around the world, people, these records and records you've done since have meant so much to people. Certain songs, I remember listening, in certain clubs and stuff, tracks being played and people just falling in love with this material. And I want to know, how do you personally look at the Artist in the Ambulance, and Identity Crisis, and where you were then? It's a little bit of a similar question to the earlier ones, but in terms of those records and what they mean to you now, and what they did for you and the band as well. But obviously you, again, launched your careers, but also you got to play kick-ass music that you obviously didn't compromise on, which is awesome in itself,
Yeah. I think like Identity Crisis, the name of the record is a little too on the nose, because it was literally us not really knowing what we were doing and trying to figure out who we were. And then I feel like with The Illusion of Safety, which we just played that record front to back last weekend, and it was fucking insane. With that record, we had a kind of a clearer picture of what we wanted to be, and when we sent demos out for that record or early recordings, like a lot of the labels that we sent it to were like, you guys need to figure out what you're going to be. Are you guys a metal band, or are you like a catchy punk rock band, or are you like a skate punk band? Like, what are you going to be? You need to pick a lane. And we were like, we don't want to pick a lane. Like,
Yeah.
the opposite of what we're trying to do here. And then with Artist in the Ambulance, I think we, well, like I said, that record was a little bit more rushed than we had hoped. But I think working with Brian McTernan, he helped kind of focus our songwriting a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, there are enough riffs on Illusion of Safety that we could have made like 5 records out of that.
Yeah.
But instead, we all crammed it into one record. So Brian definitely taught us a lot about our songwriting. I think that was a big maturation moment
Yeah.
for us. And you know, Illusion is kind of what put us on the map. Was our first record with like a legitimate label with Subsidy, which is a subdivision of Hopeless Records. It's the first time that we'd had our record outside of California, really. And it was a big moment for growth, I think both personally and like just in terms of listenership. And then Artist was when it really exploded because it had that major label push and got our music in the ears of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have a single bad thing to say about either of those records. I mean, they're both very important in their own ways. And without them, we're not here now. So
yeah, absolutely. And we, to talk about the new material now, obviously you've got Horizons East, you've got the new single as well, Open Your Eyes and Dream. Again, you can't speak for all the members of the band, really, and I understand that. But from your perspective, where you're at now, what does the new stuff mean to you? You've been prolific, recently putting out stuff. Obviously, again, it's appealing to I know kids into shoegaze that love it. I know hardcore kids that love it. Again, that you've never fit a certain mold, and that's a testament to the legacy of Thrice, I suppose. But how do you feel about this new material, and what does it mean to you personally?
I feel really good about it. I think Horizons East is the best sounding record, like sonically, mix wise, tone wise. Our friend Scott Evans mixed it, and I think it captures the dynamics of our music better than any of our prior recordings have. I think when you hear that record, you hear a real band of human people playing music. Whereas with a lot of the stuff that's coming out now, it's so juiced up and so gridded and edited, and everything's made to sound perfect and larger than life. And then you end up going to see these bands, and if they're not playing to 80% tracks, it just doesn't sound the same. And for us, it's like what you're hearing on Horizons East is what we sound like live. Like that's the band, that's who we are. And I think we're really proud of that. And I don't know, creatively, it's just that ongoing journey where we're 4 different people in this band. We all listen to drastically different styles of music, and we're all fully involved in the writing process from the beginning of ideas to the completion of songs. And it's always been a challenge for us to just take those 4 different musical tastes and try to build them into something that's semi cohesive. So the journey is the same but different every time. And I think we're really proud of Horizons East. It's also the first record that we've recorded ourselves since Beggars. So that was an exciting, since Beggars. So that was an exciting thing as well. We're stoked to be back to being self-sufficient again.
Oh man, I'm so excited for you, man. There's that energy there,
Hmm.
which is awesome and a huge part of Thrice. I want to squeeze one in before we talk about coming over to the UK and finishing up. I talked
Mhm.
about I talked about legacy there, and you laughed a bit, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on like, do you think about, when you look at the streams and the hits and the amount of people that show up to your shows and love the band and have a real personal attachment to Thrice. Do you think about legacy much? The legacy of Thrice, the legacy of yourself as a musician? Does that come into your mindset, or is it something that you don't really think about?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
it This all just seems really surreal to me still. Um, yeah, we just feel so lucky to be able to still be doing this and to be able to travel to the US or come out to the UK or Europe and have people care about the music that we make um, after we've been doing this for so long that it still seems like a dream. Um, so I don't really think about legacy. I mean, I've had younger bands reach out and talk about how influential some of our earlier records were to their development as
Mm.
musicians, and it means a lot to me. But it also seems like like it seems like surreal to me
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't click because it doesn't seem like that could really happen or should really happen. I don't know. Um,
Yeah.
but we're just thankful for all of this.
Yeah, man. It's wonderful. Again, wonderful to hear. So much effort and love and passion has gone into Thrice, and as a listener, I've always heard that. I've got some of my best friends grew up on Thrice, and that real personal connection that you've created through the songs, man. It's a beautiful thing. So congratulations on that. Even
Oh,
even
thanks, man.
now, it's a beautiful relationship. I think some fans have with the music. Just quickly, then, obviously, you are coming back to the UK. What is your message to the fans in the UK? You mentioned, obviously, just now you've said how thankful you are, but what are you looking forward to about coming back over here, UK, Europe, and doing these shows and seeing people over here again?
It feels like we don't get over there enough to me. And I know there was a period um, from like, I want to say like 2012 to maybe even before that, like 2010 to maybe 2016 or 17, where we barely made it over. Um, and we've had so many great shows in the UK and Europe, and the support that we've had over there has been overwhelming. Um, and for whatever reason, we didn't make it over for a long time, and it felt pretty awful to not be able to come share our music with people who wanted to hear it. So now we're fully invested in coming back over at least once a year, if not twice. This will be our second time this year. We were over for 2,000 Trees
Yeah,
in the
beautiful, awesome,
summer.
awesome festival. Yeah,
And yeah, we can't wait to get back and to be able to do this tour with some old buddies
yes, of
in
course.
Coheed and Cambria.
Coheed, yeah,
That's going to be a treat. I mean, we haven't toured with them in almost 20 years, I want to say.
yeah.
um, so it's going to be awesome to come over with friends. I think the shows are going to be amazing. Um, yeah, I'm really really excited. This one's been on the horizon for a long time, and now that it's finally here, I'm like, let's let's go do this. This is good.
Nice one, man. Nice one. Do you have any favorite
Yeah.
spots that you like to visit if you get over here? If you can get the time, is there anywhere you want to see or anywhere you like to go when you're in the UK?
Uh,
So put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I'm not. When I am on tour, I'm kind of a hermit,
Yeah,
for better or worse.
yeah,
I know Tepe and Dustin get out a bunch. They do walking around and getting on public transit and going to see art museums and historical stuff. But I tend to kind of just hunker down and I don't know. I don't do a whole lot. I do want to try to make it to a football match one of these times that I'm over there. But
that is. Do you have a team? Do you have a team you want to support?
Oh,
a team you support?
Not really. I mean, I kind of just follow. I follow Leeds a little bit because there's an American presence on that team. And I've actually followed West Ham a little bit.
West Ham, yeah.
I asked my buddy Sam from Architects when I was trying to get into the Premier League. I was like, so I need to pick a team that's not like top tier and not a team that's going to get relegated. I need like a really mediocre team that I can just latch on to, so I don't get accused of being a fair weather fan. And he was like, "Oh, you can go with West Ham. They're like fine.
They're solid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're not
solid.
good. They're not good, not bad. Probably not going to get relegated. And probably not going to win at all. So that's where I've been, for better or worse. It's kind of where I feel comfortable."
Nice. Fair enough, man. Fair enough. All right, dude. Well, to finish off then, Riley, any plugs or anything you feel like we might have missed that you want to plug? Anything you want to promote project-wise? Anything you want to add or say before we finish up?
Not really. I mean, I guess we dropped it's a B-side from Horizons East. It's called Open Your Eyes and Dream.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's a cool song. It's got some cool tones, some cool dynamics. It's got a little bit of the aggressive screaming that we used to feature in our older days. I don't know. We're looking forward to getting over to the UK and Europe and share a little more of Horizons East with you guys. And I think there will be a couple throwback numbers in there too from Illusion of Safety, since that stuff is like top of mind right now since we played Furnace Fest last weekend. But, it'll be a fun set for sure.
Nice one, man. Nice one. A lot of people I know looking forward to seeing it. And thank you so much, dude. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it, man. And look forward to seeing you guys as soon as possible.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it.